Welcome everybody to the initial debut of the college football playoff eliminator series where we take a realistic look around the entirety of college football at the FBS level, and we take that realistic look to see which teams still have a reasonable chance of actually making the college football playoff and being part of that 12-team contingent as we get forward into the 2025 season. So I'm very excited to debut that for you guys here today. Before we dive in, though, just a couple of things that I need from you guys. One, if you're enjoying the college football content on here, hit that like button for me as it does warm up my cold dead heart, as well as let the YouTube algorithm know. But this is some great content being pushed out here on College Football Red Zone, and you want that pushed out to other diehards like yourself. And then secondarily as well, if you've been around for a little bit, make sure you hit that subscribe button. You have a real chance to be an A1 since day one. We are approaching 100 subscribers. Would love to hit that before we get to kickoff this Saturday, because we're less than 7 days out. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into the CFP Eliminator Series. So we have 136 teams, but not all 136 teams are actually going to be initially eligible for the college football playoff this year for varying reasons. And I'm going to go ahead and put the tier maker right about here so you can see what's going on. So you can see that there are 3 separate teams that are actually not going to be eligible for the college football playoff for varying reasons. As you may know, Delaware and Missouri State, they are both football programs that are currently making their transition to the FBS level. They started last season, so this will be the only year that this will apply to them. Starting in 2026, they will be able to compete for the college football playoff, but not this particular season. As for the Akron Zips, that situation is simply a little bit different than what our newest FBS programs are going to be dealing with. They haven't done enough in the classroom, right? Their APR schools fell under the NCAA standard, and because of that rule, Akron is ineligible for any postseason action. So they, unlike Delaware and Missouri State, where if there isn't enough bowl eligible teams and they do hit that 6-win threshold, they can actually go to a bowl game still. Akron, it's not going to matter for them. Regardless of their record this season, they will actually not be able to experience any postseason action, nor, I believe, go to the MAC championship game if that is something in the cards for them. Meanwhile, there are 4 other programs that we are watching a little bit more closely this season, as I believe that these 4 programs, they're going to have to win out in order to have any chance at making the college football playoff this year. So Liberty, North Texas, Air Force, and Appalachian State. What those 4 programs have in common is that they do all have not a single power conference opponent on their schedule. Regardless of what you believe their relative strength of schedule is, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for those respective programs to really put together that signature win, per se, to get more of the attention of the playoff committee. So for those 4 programs in particular, what they're going to have to do, even among the other G5 teams, is that they are going to have literally no room for error. These are 4 teams that are going to have to win every single game this season in order to be considered for the college football playoff, which means one loss, regardless of who that one loss is, means that they will effectively be eliminated. So that does leave us with 133 teams, with Delaware, Missouri State, and Akron out. And there's actually, interesting enough, 2 games that could have an effective change and an effective impact on this tier maker that you see right here. So the first one that would be happening in week number 0 this Saturday is UNLV and Idaho State game. Why UNLV would be in danger is that there is no team, regardless of conference affiliation, that has ever made the college football playoff with an FCS loss on their resume. Should UNLV win? Absolutely. They are a 25.5 point favorite against Idaho State in the debut for Dan Mullen in his UNLV tenure after spending a couple years as a college football analyst. So we're not going to spend too terribly much time on the UNLV and Idaho State game. That is a game that UNLV should probably win comfortably, to be honest with you, being a free possession favorite. But what if I told you, though, that there is a game in week 0 that is going to have profound impact? What if I also told you that week 0 game is not Farmageddon? We will talk about Farmageddon later. The game that I am referring to, matter of fact, is Sam Houston taking on Western Kentucky in a rare Week 0 conference game between two teams that finished in the upper echelon of the Conference USA last season. Western Kentucky, as you know, they are coming off of a season which they did end up finishing 8-6, which doesn't sound too terribly impressive on paper, but what they did end up doing is that they did make a trip to the Conference USA Championship game last season, as well as make an appearance in the Boca Raton Bowl. They are led by a coaching staff that arguably has the most continuity in the entirety of the Conference USA, in Tyson Helton, who's now entering his 6th season. And this Hilltoppers team is going to be looking to retool a little bit because they did bring in, most notably, the transfer out of Abilene Christian in Maverick McAvoy, who did light it up at the FCS level, but now we see him go to a higher level of competition. We'll have to see him prove it. Another thing that is going for Western Kentucky, though, is this is going to be a home game in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is notable because it's hard to win on the road, but it is particularly the same way for Western Kentucky football, as the Hilltoppers have gone 9-3 at the Houch over the course of the last couple of seasons. So they'll have the advantage over Sam Houston in terms of continuity and experience, as well as with that reliable coaching staff and a system that has produced at least 8 wins every single season since 2019, if you exclude that COVID year, which was simply an odd year for really everybody, right? But don't sleep on Sam Houston now, however. Sam Houston was another program that really surprised a lot of folks last year, on the way to a 10-3 campaign that, yes, did not lead to them making the conference championship game, but they did win the New Orleans Bowl last year. So Sam Houston is a program that is trying to build some momentum. They're gonna have to build that momentum, though, with a brand new coaching staff, as Casey Cure did depart Sam Houston this past offseason to go and coach up the Temple Owls, which now ushers in a brand new era under Phil Longo, who is an offensive mind that's had several stops at the power conference level, including Ole Miss, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. But he'll still at least have arguably one of the best quarterbacks that are returning this past season in Hunter Watson, who had combined for over 2,400 yards through the air and on the ground. Maybe we'll see that passing attack improve under a new offensive system. But I think Hunter Watson is going to be someone that, as the season progresses, is going to have to try to take that step forward in order to keep up with one of the more prolific offenses within the Conference USA, which is something that I expect Western Kentucky to be throughout the course of this season. So let's go ahead and take a look at what FanDuel and Redzone, our Redzone model, has. So FanDuel does heavily favor the Hilltoppers as a 9.5 point favorite, and it's even considered a little bit more lopsided according to our personal power rating models. We have Western Kentucky as a 13 point favorite, which really shows a lot of love to the Hilltoppers early on in the year. Now, this is likely due to the fact that, they do have that coaching stability and that home field advantage. However, that doesn't mean we should by any means be looking over this Sam Houston squad by any stretch. This is a program building out some momentum, finishing 5-2 down the stretch after a struggle in the first half of the year. But they're also, secondarily, Sam Houston they're going to be looking to avenge a couple of blowouts ever since Sam Houston did make a transition up to the FBS level. Sam Houston losing by multiple possessions in the two previous meetings that Western Kentucky has had. So early on in Sam Houston's Conference USA tenure, we have seen Western Kentucky really do a number on these guys. So although it's going to take some time, I think, for both offenses to mesh with a brand new quarterback and a new offensive system at Western Kentucky. I believe bringing in their play caller as well, plus Sam Houston breaking in a whole new coaching staff in general, we could see some early season rust, and this could quickly turn into, although it could be foreseen as a shootout, and surely Sam Houston, I think, will be in plenty of shootouts since they did lose the vast majority of their defense last season. I think it's going to be defined by those key defensive stops and momentum shifting turnovers. I don't think that this is going to be one of those games where you see it go into the 60s in terms of points scored. Yes, there'll be points on the board, but I expect the defense to play a little bit better than expected. Now, all things considered, even though I do believe that this is going to shape up to be a tightly contested season opener with this being a conference game and, both teams still trying to work out the kinks in their respective systems, I do believe that the experience on the Western Kentucky sideline, as well as the strength of the Hilltoppers' home field advantage, that should carry them to victory. But as a program, however, Sam Houston's going to have that hunger for revenge, and the promising leadership under Phil Longo, I am a Phil Longo believer, does lead me to believe that this is going to be a more competitive affair than expected. So I expect this to be a hard-fought battle. So I'm going to disagree with not only FanDuel, but I'm going to disagree in terms of my red zone model, right? I don't think that this is going to be a multi-possession victory, a convincing victory for the Hilltoppers. I do, however, think that Western Kentucky will win this game, but it's going to be in that realm of a 30-27 win with, while Western Kentucky will win the game, I do believe that Sam Houston will move forward and at least cover and build some momentum as, difficult non-conference slate. A little bit on the underrated side, starting off with UNLV next week. So it's going to be interesting to see how this game plays out, but I'm definitely excited for it. Really, in my opinion, one of the most underrated games that we have on the Week 0 slate.